Hi, I'm Diane Krokora, CEO of PartnerPath, and welcome to this week's Technology Channel videocast. With me, I have Principal at PartnerPath, Carol Neslin. Welcome, Carol.
Hi, Diane.
I appreciate you jumping on with me on a Tech Channel cast today, just to quickly summarize the webinar that we had that you presented on 5 ways to be a better boss.
Yeah, it'd be fun to spend some time talking about it. I thought at first maybe we should have titled it 5 Ways to Be a Better Leader. But in the end, the way to be a better boss is to be a leader, not a boss.
And I thought that was a great spin that you had, right? I think the be a better boss is kind of the alliteration, and that I thought you had a really good point of like, be a leader, not a boss. That's one way. That's actually not one of the 5, but there was one way I thought you did a really good job of talking about 5 key kind of leadership skills to help the channel managers and sales guys become better at leading their teams.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things are more leadership skill oriented, which is why I say, it all comes down to being a better leader as opposed to being a boss, because, bosses are the ones who tell you what to do and are insistent about you doing it their way, and can end up being micromanagers and appearing not to really care about what's happening with you, versus a leader is somebody who tries to inspire you to do your best job. And some of the ways they do that are through some of the 5 tips that we talked about, like being a better communicator and actually taking time to inspire people to have a vision, giving good feedback. Those are some of the things that are really important for leaders to do for their teams, as opposed to, just telling people what to do.
Yeah, I think, the first point you had was communication, and communication is key, not only in leadership, but in all relationships. And the second one was, I thought was particularly interesting and insightful around coaching, and how do you, coach your team for their success as well.
Yeah, and I think the key thing there is a lot of times we get feedback, but mostly what we get in terms of feedback or coaching from our managers is a very quick, hey, great job. Or, well, let me tell you in detail why I don't think the job that you did was good. So you don't get much positive feedback that helps you understand how to build on what you're doing right. And then the other thing that can be kind of challenging is you get negative feedback, or constructive feedback, we like to call it, because ideally it should be aimed at helping you be better and to build your skills. But we get it either in a very curt way without an opportunity to discuss it, or we get it 6 months later in a performance review, as opposed to getting that feedback in the moment. So spending time after a meeting saying to somebody, hey, when we were in the meeting presenting the proposal to the client and they had a lot of questions, you cut them off before they were able to actually answer the questions. And as a consequence, I think we're not going to be as effective in winning the business. And in the future, I recommend that you leave time for questions. That's meaningful feedback that somebody can act on in that moment, versus waiting until 6 months later in the performance review and saying, hey, remember that meeting we went to? Well, I thought you did a really bad job. It's much better to give people feedback in the moment, and both positive and constructive feedback, not just negative feedback. So,
right, I got an air full of negative feedback on the water at about 5:30 this morning. So barked at me from a boat. So that's always fun. To set me off on not a great motion for the morning. Another one that you had was around managing consistently. And I thought that was really interesting. Most of us expect that we are managing consistently, but I think you highlighted some points there.
Well, I think we would like to believe we're fair and impartial and consistent in how we manage, but we're human. And there are always people on your team that you just connect with better on a personal level. Typically, you may have hobbies in common. You may both have children. You may both like to read the same books. You might both be on the crew team. You both might be ultra runners, like, the crazy stuff that I do. And so you find yourself talking to them more and interacting with them more, and sometimes inadvertently favoring those people more. And it's important that you're giving everybody on your team an opportunity to shine. Even the people that you don't gel with from a personality standpoint, they still might be really great contributors. I mean, I'm a salesperson at heart. I'm married to an engineer. I feel like we both have something to give in the relationship, and we both have different ways of coming at things. And it would be a shame if, as a salesperson, I discounted anybody who wasn't a salesperson out there, as someone to get ideas from, as an example. And the other thing I wanted to clarify that I didn't have time to say in the webinar is it's not about treating people equally for different levels of performance. You should consistently be rewarding people for good performance that are performing well, and you should be addressing non-performance. So if you have two people who are doing a great job, one that you would really love to go have a beer with and have lunch with, and one that does a great job but you don't want to spend any time with them outside of work, it's good to be sure that you're giving both of those people the same opportunities to excel, even though you might not personally be as inclined to spend time with both of them, if that makes sense. So consistent relative to performance. If everybody's doing well, they should be treated similarly. And if people are doing poorly, you should also treat the poor performers consistently, not give the person that you happen to like a little bit of a break because you like them.
Right. So, or especially if you happen to do, other things outside of work together, it's really hard not to kind of a break or even, give them a little heads up. And I think that consistency is a big part of being considered a good leader across your organization versus being somebody that is biased or unfair to those that, don't row on the crew team. That's not quite fair.
Yeah. And I think we've all experienced it at some level where we feel like we've worked really hard and we're being overlooked because we're not best friends with the person who's doing, the judging. And we're all human. We're not all going to be perfect. But if you're at least peripherally aware that that might creep in, then I think that helps you be a better leader, because I think it helps people on your team feel like even if they're not your best friend, they're going to be recognized for performing well.
And then the last one was around, you're using your power wisely or productively, as you called it. It was like you mentioned the politicalness of it, and how do you be positive there and go to the good side. Don't stay away from the dark side.
Yeah, I think everybody hates the word politics. Because they don't, what I hear consistently when I interviewed people for leadership roles, and you would ask them, what some of their weaknesses are, or what do they not like about being in a leadership position, 9 times out of 10, somebody says, well, I hate the politics. I don't like to play politics. I'm not going to play the politics. And I understand what they're talking about. They're talking about the destructive kind of politics where people get pitted against each other and there's a winner and a loser. What I'm talking about is recognizing that you have power and influence in organization that you can bring to bear to help your team. So for example, if there's going to be a great project that your team would be perfectly suited for, and another team would also be well suited for it, you want to use your power and influence to get your team that great opportunity to shine and to perform differently. Also, if things are going to happen in the organization that might negatively impact your team, you want to make sure you're using your power and influence to make that negative impact as small as possible. It seems like everybody's been part of a RIF or some kind of a downsizing. And one of the things where it is important to use your power and influence positively is to make sure that your team is being recognized for the work that they're doing. So they're not just being broad brush, taken under in some kind of a downsizing like that. Some people would call that playing politics. I think it's making sure that you're using your power and influence to protect your team and to be sure that your team is properly recognized in the organization and getting its due.
Well, great. Thank you for that great summary. And maybe we'll have a video cast on how do you build more of that power and influence in organizations. Maybe that'll be a topic further down the line for our little 8-minute video chats here. I think a lot of people would like to say before they, use it wisely, how do they continue to build it, and what builds influence within an organization. So thank you,
I think,
Carol.
I was gonna say, I think that's a great idea, Diane, because a lot of people out there probably want a shot at being a channel chief. And one of the things you have to be able to do is work the organization and your partners and your team. You have to have that ability to have power and influence to be a channel chief. And we'll be talking a lot more about that, won't we?
That we will. We always call it the power of persuasion, right? And not always for the ways you think that you're going to use your power of persuasion. Go sales guys. Thank you, Carol. Thanks for joining me today on the Tech Channel Videocast. Have a great week, and we will talk to you next week.